Well, hello, everybody. My name is Leah, and I am here on behalf of LSAT Unplugged. I am a former TA with LSAT Unplugged that taught reading comprehension. I just recently started law school myself at the beginning of the week, so I've been in all of your shoes not too long ago, and I made it through, so I'm sure all of you will make it through as well, and especially with the help of our esteemed guest here that we have with us today. He is Tim, now correct me if I'm wrong, Tim Luczak. He is the Assistant Director of Student Recruitment at Indiana University McKinney School of Law. He started there in August of 2021. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Public Relations, and after graduating from his alma mater, he moved to Florida to work at Disney. That is so cool. I've always wanted to be a Disney princess. And after a semester there, he went back to higher education to serve as an admissions counselor for over 3 years at Wilkes Honors College of Florida Atlantic University, located in Jupiter, Florida. While working at FAU, Tim earned his master's in higher education leadership to continue growing in the field of admissions and higher education. Tim has a passion for serving students and helping them with their collegiate journey and is excited to continue working with students here at IU McKinney School of Law. So thank you so much, Tim, and welcome. We are very grateful for you being here with us today to give us lots of insight and tips on how to get into law school. So
Yes.
Can you give us a little bit of background on what led you to admissions?
Yeah, well, so I was very involved in undergrad, where I was, working with the admissions and doing the tours of campus and all of that. So that really kind of sparked my interest in going into this field. Unfortunately, I didn't have that passion to go into law school, but I very much enjoy working with just students who want to go into college and then graduate school. That's what started me wanting to, just work in admissions in the first place when I was at Florida Atlantic University. And then I basically just had to come back home to Indiana. And luckily there is this fantastic law school that is literally right downtown in Indianapolis. And it was a new challenge for me to work with students that I hadn't previously worked with as much, graduate students, and I have very much enjoyed it. And to kind of add to that bio, I now have a new role as well. I'm now the interim assistant dean of enrollment management as well at the law school. Yes, so I will be helping with I'll be overseeing all of the admissions right now.
Oh, that is so cool. Well, I just want to point out, I love these full circle moments. I know I just finished my first week of law school, and I can't tell you how many of my professors, I don't think any of them look, they all look young to me, but they've talked about how they've had these careers in law and then have come back to be professors of law and just say that it's just so fulfilling. And so that's one thing, that I hope to have in my occupation, is to be fulfilled every day. And so I can tell that you're fulfilled by what you do. So I just, kudos to you on that. And I know that on behalf of all applying law students, we appreciate someone who cares. So So I guess we'll just get right to it then.
Sure.
How does law school regard multiple LSAT scores? And do you view scores related to various LSAT formats? I know that things for me were all online. I think, if I'm correct, that's going to be changing maybe in 2023. I'm not up to speed on what's going on there, but how do you regard the different scores if someone maybe is a less traditional student and has taken the LSAT 3 years ago? Now they're going to take it again and are ready to hit law school next fall. How do you regard all of those?
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to, of course, that admissions decision, you're going to hear the word holistic a lot. And so that's just meaning that we are looking at all different factors when it comes to an application. But speaking specifically about the LSAT, that is the law school admissions test. So us in admissions, we really want to see that test right now, because it's a test that will, allow us to see your ability to be successful in law school. And so when it comes to taking two tests, that is absolutely okay. We, particularly at IU McKinney, we do accept the highest score. And so it's not frowned upon to take it again, because especially if there's improvement, that's showing your passion for wanting to get into this field. And I know our admissions committee, they very much enjoy seeing that.
So let me ask you, do other factors of an application make up for maybe a lower LSAT score or a less desirable LSAT score based on what the admissions committee, has suggested or is looking for, or what is on US News
Exactly.
rankings?
Yeah, so a lot, we're all going to talk about the medians and looking at the medians. And those, of course, will, give you that best idea of maybe your chances of admissions. But for those candidates that maybe have, the high LSAT and the low GPA, or vice versa, so in this case with a lower LSAT, absolutely, those other parts of the application can very much help a student in their admissions possibilities here, because what we really want to see is, like I said, we do want to see that a student is passionate in the law, wants to go into this field. And so that can really be shown in a personal statement, where we are getting a glimpse into the background and what led a student to becoming interested in this field of law. Or even a resume where we'll be able to see, have you been doing any internships? Or maybe you are on or in a pre-law organization during undergrad. So these are some things that can absolutely play a strong factor into a student's success, and just a reason why the committee would want to admit students, even if their LSAT score is a little bit below what they generally would admit.
So you mentioned personal statement. Do you have any tips on what an admissions counsel might look for in a personal statement, or what makes a personal statement particularly memorable when you have so many to read through?
Absolutely. So for me, I want to understand why you even want to go into this field. There have been times where I've read, personal statements, and I don't want to finish reading a statement and then ask myself, why is this person wanting to go into law? And so generally, I think of 5 topics to incorporate into a personal statement. And the first is provide a little bit of background. We want to get to know you, because this is a perfect chance. We don't interview students. And so this is basically the interview.
Sure.
The second part is going to be, going into that whole, why do you want to go into law? What led to your interest in going into the field of law? And why do you want to earn a degree, a JD degree? And then that fourth is going to be, what do you plan to do with that degree? And finally, after we like to encourage students to at least incorporate just a little bit as to, why are you applying specifically to our school? To give us an idea, and, because fit does absolutely play a role when it comes to an admissions decision. Sometimes we want to know that this is a place you will want to be, and you will stay for, all 3 years or 4 years if you're doing a part-time program. And take the bar and go through that process and be a part of the legal community.
So I want to comment on a couple things that you mentioned, one of which being knowing that you want to come here. Why here, right? Why this school? And I may or may not be guilty of, on some of my many law school applications that I filled out, made very generalized statements that the schools that I didn't make generalized statements to, I got in, and the ones that I did, I was waitlisted or did not. So just to say that I'm sure you can agree, to be do some research, be a little bit specific,
Yeah.
whether that's on a professor, whether that's on a particular program, whether that's on a study abroad opportunity, whether that's on a connection. Be specific when you're answering those questions of why here. It
Exactly.
can be a pain in the butt to have to write, 20 of those if you're applying to 20 schools, but it's better to do it than not to do it. So I just wanted to comment on that. And then your question of why do you want to be an attorney? Why do you want to go to law school? And that's a question as someone, again, first week in law school, I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I have been asked that by professionals in the past 5 days. And it's something that maybe your answer, I can tell you right now, my answer has evolved even in the past 5 days a little bit than it was when I wrote my personal statement, which was entirely about why I wanted to go to law school and what events in my life influenced me in that way. And so just be prepared for this question to be asked of you for the next, I'm going to say, at least 3 or 4 years of your life after this, as you make your way through law school, as you graduate from law school and, become a practicing attorney, that you will be answering this question of why law school. So really be thinking about it now as you're drafting your personal statement. Great. So this is like a burning question, and it seems like such a simple question that I think all law students or prospective law students want to know is
Mhm.
what does it take to stand out amongst other talented candidates? I know we kind of talked about what goes into a personal statement and what is good to know. Is there something that makes someone stand out to you?
It really, I would have to say that that personal statement is an easy part to help a student stand out in when it comes to the application. The resume can also be a factor to stand out, but one thing that's looking a little bit away from the application is actually engaging with the admissions office in the sense of, going to visits that are available. For example, we hold information sessions almost year round. And these are opportunities for students who are just about to start the application process or are in the application process, but just haven't submitted yet, to come and learn about our school, about the application process from us in admissions. And so these are ways that we can actually see these students face to face. We can make these connections with the students. And so that is one way. And I know that not every law school is going to have, these kinds of opportunities necessarily. But there are a lot of law schools that do. And so definitely if the law school that you're wanting to apply to has that opportunity, I would encourage you to take advantage of that and, reach out and hear from, and, work with the people in that admissions office. I know I love working with the students, so I don't mind doing that at all.
Yes, it's so nice when you can get some comfortability with talking to members of admission, as you're going through the process, as you're waiting to hear, you might be on a wait list and then you get to go schedule, for me, I was in a situation where I got off of a wait list and, you have 2 days to let them know what's going on.
Mhm.
And for me, it being states away, there was a lot going on at that particular time. Just they end up being a little bit more flexible with you. They ended up doubling the time that I had to decide, right?
Yeah.
To try and get there and see a tour and get to know them. And I think that that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't so in touch and in contact with them. And another 2 days is a really big deal when you have to pay a seat deposit or you have to, drive 8 hours away to go visit. Those things can make a difference. So I think that's really great. How early, in your opinion, do you think an applicant should consider preparing for admissions? Or when they should have their application in for their best chance? Is there like a soft deadline there that you would say?
Yeah, so the applications, many of law schools, they open up on September 1st. And so we're the same way. September 1st is that starting of the application season, basically. And so we encourage students to get those applications in by before the new year, October, November, even December, because getting those applications in earlier means higher chances of admittance, because you're going to be one of the first to be reviewed. That would probably be my biggest encouragement. It also means that, let's say, for example, you have taken the LSAT in October. Score comes back, it's not as good as you're, maybe wanting, and you want to have the opportunity to take it again. By going through that process early in the cycle, this means that you have plenty of opportunity to take it again in January or February to get that higher score. You can still submit your application with that score that you received, but the law schools are going to know that you are registered for a future test. So that is a way that that's why I definitely encourage to get those applications in sooner rather than later.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I was a shotgun LSAT, apply to all my schools in the 11th hour, January, February LSAT taker. So I always would tell my students, if you could learn anything at all, any one thing from me, it would be to be a little bit more prepared. Do not procrastinate. And Socratic review. those are my takeaways. But I totally agree. I had 3 weeks between my first and second test. And I pulled it out, but I was burnt out by the end. So and then you have to do all the papers after that. So it wasn't even like it was over or anything. So I absolutely agree. The earlier the better. If you don't have everything together, you don't have to have everything together when you first start drafting your application. Those things can roll in. You can visit LSAC and all of that to see how all of that works as well. And ask your teachers and your TAs at LSAT Unplugged, because they're very knowledgeable in that area. So how has COVID impacted the law school experience, and how has that changed maybe from the past? And additionally, do you have any predictions on this next cycle of admissions?
Yeah, of course. So every school is going to be slightly different, just because each state, is doing maybe something different. Some school systems are, different in their mandates that they have. Speaking specifically for IU McKinney, we were virtual, when it all started, the pandemic and COVID-19. But last year was all in person. So that was great for our students. And so we anticipate that that's kind of how we're going to be running things now. This students that just started last week, they just started last week. They are all fully in person, and that's honestly what we're anticipating. We really don't want to go back into a fully online, even if it's a little hybrid. That's okay. Now, prior to COVID, we were still offering some online courses after your first year. So that is something that we still have available for students, because we also want to make sure that there is flexibility for students. And so students, particularly at our school, can take classes day, evening, online, occasional Saturdays. So we have that flexibility for students. But when it comes to COVID-19, we're really anticipating that it's back to, in person, kind of how it was before things went into, COVID-19 protocols.
Sure. And I'm sure your university is very similar to what mine is doing, where I was in college before COVID hit, right?
Mhm.
And if you missed, like you missed if your professor didn't record their lecture, you had to get the notes from somebody else.
Exactly.
And now I feel like that has very much changed. And if you're sick and you let them know, like, I know that all of my lectures are recorded, they're saved. You can watch them live, you can watch them back if you weren't there. You aren't going to be penalized. Like, it's very much more flexible and more understanding when something comes up, in my opinion, and from what I've learned going through, the educational system as this has all unfolded.
No, I would have
More
to
so
agree with you.
than before.
Yeah, I would have to agree
Yeah.
with you there. There
And
probably is a bit more
it's less
lenient.
stressful. It takes a level of stress off,
Yes, absolutely.
So is there a student who is the right fit? Is there such a thing as a right fit student for law school?
In a way, because there's right fit for student, but then also the school has to be the right fit for the student. So that's something to also keep in mind. But when it comes to, is the student the right fit? That's basically, is the student going to be successful? Ultimately, our goal is to help you achieve your goal of becoming a lawyer, of going through law school, earning your JD, and taking the bar, passing the bar. We need to make sure that students are going to be able to kind of go through those obstacles and reach that goal at the end. And so it's really finding those students that we see are going to be successful.
I really appreciate that answer. And I want to particularly point out that you said a right fit for this school. And that this school is a right fit for them. It's almost like this relationship is circular. And that's something that, as I've done these interviews, we've had individuals who are, have consulting groups that you can consult, have them draft your whole application. We've had admissions officers, and the admissions officers have all pointed out this: you have to be a right fit for this school, and this needs to be a place for you. And that's not something, as someone who applied to very many law schools, most of which I've never been to in my life, not something that I thought of. And now, as I'm enrolled and I am where I am, and I remember my parents saying, Leah, I think this is for the best. I was like, oh, I want to go far away just because, who knows, right? And that didn't happen. And I'm right back where, in the same city that I went to undergrad. And they said, I really think this is for a reason. And now that I've heard this so many times, and I'm here now, and I realize how difficult and, mentally strenuous some things are, I can't imagine having this other stressor of trying to learn more about the school, more about the area. The list could go on, right?
Yeah.
And it definitely makes a difference in your day-to-day life and how you handle your first time at law school, your first couple weeks at law school, and your 3 years at law school. So I am really glad that you said this relationship between, you have to be right for us and we have to be right for you. Exactly. And I think that that's not something, if any other student is like me, it's not something that I really focused on or took into consideration as I applied.
Yeah, well, and because there's so many factors when it comes to choosing a law school as well. The location, like you've kind of mentioned a little bit. Price, of course, is going to be a big thing. Some places may be offering you more scholarship money, and maybe that's something that needs to be part of your decision. Or maybe the school has a particular program that not many law schools have. And so you want to make sure that you choose a law school that has the program you are interested in pursuing. So yeah, and that's why we think that fit is so important for the student to the law school as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned in terms of area and the price of tuition, also, the cost of living in that area is something that maybe I didn't take into consideration either. And I sure started taking it into consideration when I was looking for a place to live. So that's something that definitely comes into play.
Yes.
So what is your process in looking at an application? Do you have, a checklist that you kind of go down through? What do you look at first? What do you regard in the highest?
Mhm. So, first to start off, with our whole admissions committee, it is a committee. It's not just myself and, one or two other people in the admissions office. We actually have professors who are reviewing the applications. And so they make up our admissions committee who are actually reviewing applications. But when it comes to, looking at these applications, just to be, very transparent with you and everyone who is listening, the numbers do play, a significant role. The undergraduate GPA and the LSAT score. And so typically, we are going to look at those first just to see where you are. If you're a little lower, that's where we go right into the application and dive right into that personal statement. That's where I like to, start off and just read through that and really get a sense of, who are you? Why do you want to go to law school? And from there, going through the resume, seeing if there's any optional statements that can be included, like, those GPA addendums, the LSAT addendums. Sometimes we do have diversity statements, and of course we read through those as well. So we're not skipping out on anything. We are reading the full application.
And you touched on a lot of the different essays, and I encourage a lot of you to, do all of those optional essays if you can, because it's just the more that they can learn about you, the more that they get a holistic picture of who you are, because now you've given them all this information. You've written your personal statement. Now you have your resume, so I like to say your resume is the piece that shows your passions, right? Like where your volunteer work, what you want to be doing with your degree, essentially, what's important to you that's outside of your personal statement. Then these optional papers just give even more information that's really not in either your personal statement or your resume. So they're just getting a clear view. Okay.
Yeah, I would be careful about those optional statements, though. If you are already a very strong student and you're writing a GPA addendum, that's just more reading for the committee that isn't really necessary. You may even be pointing to an issue that really isn't an issue. And so
Sure.
that's the only hesitation I have with some of those optionals. But absolutely, the diversity statement is a great, supplement for more background into you. So I do agree that, yeah, having as much information about you is absolutely valid. But some of those additional, the addendums, you can absolutely kind of check with admissions, or if you maybe had a bad whole year or whole semester of college, that would be a time to definitely maybe mention or use an addendum. Or there were some personal circumstances that happened with your LSAT. That may be something to mention in an LSAT addendum. So that's just something I would keep in mind for students that are applying.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad that you made that distinction here. That's exactly what I meant, but I'm glad we, solidified that these optional essays, like why this school, is one that I've seen. I've seen leadership statements. I've seen diversity statements. The list really can go on. Those papers, if you can do it, exhaust those. The addendum, if you don't need an addendum, don't write an addendum.
Yeah.
There are things that I probably should have written an addendum about, and I didn't, because I was like, I need to stop. Like, I'm doing too much, right? But I, in my situation, probably wouldn't have been doing too much. But if you don't have something to write an addendum about, do not do it, because now you just seem annoying. I've heard that from multiple people as well. So don't, everyone gets time by the eyes of the admissions council. Do not, exhaust their time with things that don't need to be stated. I completely agree. So let me ask you about maybe some non-traditional students. I think I mentioned
Okay.
before, maybe a student that's been out of, it graduated from college 10 years ago and has been in the
Mhm.
workforce. Maybe it's someone who's in law school right now, but is looking to transfer. Do you have any specific advice for those individuals on maybe their, applications for admission or applications for transfer?
Yeah. Well, just to let you know, we actually do get quite a few non-traditional students at our school because we do offer a part-time program. In other words, it's our evening program. So students are doing the whole law school in the evenings. And so, because of that, I'm able to work with a lot of non-traditional students. And I always get that concern of my GPA in undergrad, which was 10 years ago, was not great. And so that's where I just need to reassure students that that's okay. Although we do look at the undergrad GPA, when you've been out of college for a while, that's where we start relying more on the resume and the personal statement, because that is going to show us more about who you are at this point. College was so long ago, it doesn't matter. You can't change the GPA anyway, so let's not even worry about that. Now, if a student went to a graduate program, awesome. We'll look at that GPA, and because that's a way to indicate, are they going to be successful in a graduate program? But really, it's that resume that we encourage students to really work on. Hopefully, maybe there is some experience in some form of law. And if not, maybe you took advantage of volunteering or maybe like a pro bono in a sense, shadowing even just to see, that passion of this is what I want to get into. Or if you don't have any of that, the personal statement. Help us connect the dots of you started off in a nursing career and now you want to go to law. Talk us through how that happened or why that happened. And hopefully that kind of gives a little bit of answer to the question there.
Yes, it does. It does. And then in terms of transfer students, does that application process, how is that different from just, you know, applying normal when you would come in for 1L?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I forgot about
Oh,
transfer.
that's
So with transfer, so that one is going to be a
okay.
little bit different, in that it's not going to be as extensive, in the application. We just need to know that you've been successful in law school. So specifically for us, you need to complete a full year at another law school before you could transfer. And so that would be the case. And it's really just making sure that you have that good GPA and there's a recommendation from the previous law school that you have attended or are attending. Yeah. So
Great. Well,
we're
Tim,
able to look at. Okay. I'm sorry, I cut
go
you off
ahead. Go
there.
ahead. No, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, and I was just going to say, and we are able to look at your, students' initial applications, and they can always include that as well when going through that transfer process.
Okay, great. Well, Tim, is there anything that I didn't cover that you would like to comment on?
The good thing is we covered a lot about the application process. And so hopefully this has been very informative for everyone to hear. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of chat a little bit about it.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, if we have students that want to reach you, maybe to learn more about, IU, to learn more about what they can do to stand out, maybe have a follow-up question on something that you said, how can they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So so that they don't have to spell my last name, the easiest way to contact us is actually just reaching out to um our admissions email, and that is going to be lawadmit@iupui.edu. And so that's the best way to contact us. And of course, I'm always happy to chat with students about the application process. And then, of course, if you want to learn more about IU McKinney, I'm always happy to talk more about our school that is right downtown Indianapolis, the capital of Indiana.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Tim. We are also appreciative for you showing your, integral role of story crafting and admissions and choosing those future lawyers of the world. So thank you for sharing your expertise with us. We highly appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And best of luck to you in your first year of law school.
Oh, thank you. It's been very demanding yet fulfilling in the past 5 days. We'll put it that way. But it's a learning curve, I hear, of balancing sleep and amongst other things. So we're still figuring that out. But yes, thank you so
Okay.
much. I appreciate it. And you have a great rest of your evening, Tim.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.